Are you a crafter? Annie's Kit Clubs will deliver creativity right to your mailbox. Get a new shipment every month with supplies and instructions to make something beautiful. Whether you like crocheting, quilting, knitting, or other crafts, Annie's has a club for you. They even offer clubs to try a variety of crafting techniques. Make a quick new project every month or take a larger piece like a quilt or an afghan, one section at a time. Annie's has clubs for kids too. So introduce your kids to crafting, woodworking, and STEM activities with projects they can make themselves. No matter your age, skill level, or crafting interest, you can explore your favorite hobbies with convenient kits that are just the right size. Visit Annie's Kit Clubs, that's ANNIES Clubs, CLUBS.com, and enter promo code BOOMER at checkout to receive 50% off your first order. Begin crafting today. Hello and welcome to Hey Boomer. So good to be back with you after my travels. Hey Boomer is the show for those of us who believe that we are never too old to set another goal or dream a new dream. My name is Wendy Green, and I am your host with Hey Boomer. I sat down the other night in preparation for this episode to write about the changes and the transitions that I have been through. It seemed like a good exercise, being that this episode is about transitions and that I am a transitions coach. So I thought a timeline would make sense as a way to track this. And I decided to start from high school graduation, which was in 1971. Suddenly, the page was full. Since 1971, I have been through at least 37 different changes. That means that I have moved to different homes or different states. There was the birth of my two children, marriage and divorce, going back to school at the age of 28 as a single mother, starting new jobs, being downsized or leaving jobs, starting a kids art business, becoming a certified change leader in 2000, becoming credentialed as a professional coach in 2013, and as a podcast host in 2020. It would be trite to say that these transitions were easy or painless, because at the time, many of these transitions were messy and uncomfortable. Some of the transitions I have been through were powerful and motivating. Some were exhausting and depleting. Some I moved through quickly, and others, it was like moving at a glacial pace. I did think by the time I was almost 70, which will be in 4 weeks, I would have worked everything out and there would be no more transitions to go through. Wrong. Change is something we can always count on, whether it is thrust upon us or something self-initiated. At least now, when I am in the midst of the uncomfortableness of a transition, I know a few things. I know that the uncomfortable feelings that I'm going through will lead to some inner growth. I know that things will not be uncomfortable forever. I know that taking time to be still, to reflect on the questions, will help me to find the answers. And I know it will take as long as it takes. In today's episode, I want to share with you what I have learned about transitions, the messy and uncomfortable journey to new beginnings. But before we get into this, As many of you know, my grandson and I just returned from an amazing grandparent-grandchild trip aboard the Windjammer sailing ship, the Angelique. This was a Rhodes Scholar grandparent-grandchild trip, and we sailed around the coast of Maine, stopping at different islands, even had a lobster bake on an island. The kids learned so much about sailing and knot tying and the animals in the water and the fish in the water and the crustaceans. And we had a couple of kind of rainy, cloudy, cool days, and then we had a couple of absolutely magnificent sailing days. And in spite of all of that, the educators on the trip kept those kids entertained, and they learned a lot. Every trip that I have ever made with Rhodes Scholar has been so well organized and so educational. They are the not-for-profit leader in educational travel for boomers and beyond, and for grandparents and grandchildren. So if you think you might have a trip in your future, take a look at rhodescholar.org/heyboomer, and please use the /heyboomer because it lets them know that you heard about it here. Also, as we're talking about transitions, I wanted to encourage you to download the Life Vitality Assessment from my website. We all want to stay vital as we age. This assessment will give you some insight and validate how you are feeling now. Hopefully, you're feeling fully vitalized. But does the quality and meaning of your life, is it giving you enough sustained energy to do the things you want to do? Or possibly you're feeling half empty, and so it's a little bit difficult to find the energy to do the things you want to do. Or is it time to take stock and to really look at your life and think about what you need to let go of, what you might want to add to get back that feeling of vitality? So download the assessment, the Vitality Assessment, from the heyboomer.biz homepage. And then I'm available to talk, right? So if you would like to chat and schedule some time, I'm setting aside time on Thursdays, and you can use my Calendly link to schedule some time. I will be putting this link in the show notes, and I look forward to talking to you because I like to know that you are there and I am here for you. All right, so let's get into the episode. I want to start this episode with a story about a man named Ken Olsen. Ken was the founder of Digital Equipment Corporation, or DEC as I knew it, and maybe some of you even remember that company. At its peak in the late 80s, it grew to over 120,000 employees with operations in 95 countries. And as a technology company, it was surpassed only in size by IBM. DEC was an engineers company. They hired really smart people, and then they turned them loose to create products and solutions. I worked for DEC during the heydays. I worked with customers to support them and train them on the products that were created by those really smart engineers. We all felt empowered, respected, and we were given so many opportunities to learn and advance. The problems began when Ken Olsen came to believe that the personal computer would never survive as a product. He could not envision people having a personal computer on their desktops. And in 1992, the board forced him to resign. 6 years later, Compaq purchased DEC for $9.6 billion. I watched the company downsize and sell off parts of the organization after Mr. Olsen was forced out. And in 1995, the downsizing hit me. At our stage of life, Change comes in many forms. It could be the loss of a job through a layoff or retirement. It could be the loss of a spouse, sibling, or parent. It might be the loss of some of our physical abilities. Maybe you've moved from your longtime family home into a retirement community. In the vernacular of transitions, coined by William Bridges in his foundational book by the same name, we are facing an ending. And what happens when we are faced with an ending, be it a change we choose or a change that is forced upon us? Well, many of us experience anxiety. It can affect our ability to sleep. It can affect our health. It can affect our self-confidence and our self-image. We might feel isolation or loneliness. Often when we're going through this kind of transition, we'll feel a lack of interest in things that we used to be interested in. We call this depression. But sometimes there is a spiritual questioning, a renewed interest in the meaning of our lives. Losing my job with DEC as a single parent with one child in college and the other about to start college, it was a very frightening ending for me. I was at the height of my career. I had started the U.S. Expertise Center for a product we were creating. I was traveling around the world. Suddenly, I was let go, and felt like I was on a chasm looking into a void of the unknown. I experienced the anxiety, the stress, the sleeplessness. And because of all the responsibilities I had with my children in college or going to college, I immediately started to look for my next job. And fortunately, I was able to land a job in Maryland. And right after my son graduated from high school in Georgia, we relocated. Pretty major change. However, what I learned is that change does not constitute a transition. We react to change, to move through the uncomfortableness as quickly as possible. A transition is more intentional and reflective. Change is what happens externally. We change jobs. We move into retirement. We move to a new community or a new home. We become parents or grandparents. Those are external changes. Transition is what happens internally. Taking the time to process how that change is affecting you internally will have a profound impact on how successfully you manage the change. At the time I moved to Maryland, I did not transition. I changed. I changed location and jobs, but I did not take the time to reflect on what I could learn from the experience. I reacted in order to keep the money flowing. I mentioned the book Transitions by William Bridges. In this book, he talks about 3 stages we go through in transitions. There is now a new book out by Bruce Feiler called Life is in the Transitions. That defines very similar stages, but takes a somewhat different approach to transitions. William Bridges calls the first stage endings, as I mentioned. Bruce Feiler refers to it as the long goodbye. Because there is often grief from loss associated with this stage, even if you wanted the ending to happen. Let's talk about the ending of a full-time job, for instance. Most recently, I lost my job due to the pandemic. Understandably, I felt a sense of loss, a loss of control over the timing, for sure. If you have planned for your retirement, you may have the big going away party and you wake up the following Monday with no office to go to. And at first it feels great. But over time, you recognize that you've had a loss of routine, probably a loss of some of the friendships you had at work, the loss of structure what you're going to do during those 8, 10, 12 work hour days, and the loss of a paycheck. And this is where many of us get stuck. Just like I did when I lost my job at DEC, we immediately look for something to replace the discomfort we are feeling. By not taking the time to reflect, we miss the opportunity for some tremendous growth. And this is where the next stage comes in. William Bridges calls this stage the neutral zone. Feeler refers to it as the messy middle. I kind of like that. Ideally, it is a time of introspection. You are questioning what's worked for you. Maybe you're trying on new ideas and new habits. It can be very uncomfortable because it could be a time of reinvention. The time in the neutral zone or the messy middle can be short, or it may take months, but it should not be rushed. There is a richness in being in the wilderness and giving yourself the time to explore the new thoughts and opportunities that are showing up. When I was forced into the ending of my job because of the pandemic, I did take some time in the neutral zone or the messy middle. Because of my training, I knew some things to ask myself. I asked, how did I want to feel going forward? What was important to me? How could I make an impact? And what was I good at and I enjoy doing? Those questions led me to this reinvention. I did not even know how to make a podcast or become a podcast host, but I felt that I had something to offer to my fellow boomers, and I felt that now was the time to try something new. And Hey Boomer was born. That was my new beginning, as both Bridges and Feeler call it. Giving myself time in the neutral zone and the messy middle to explore what was important to me, what would give me meaning, led me to this new beginning. When I started working on this episode, I thought I would share with you some of the things I talk about with my clients. I did not see myself in a transitional time, but guess what? Life is funny like that. When you think you are coasting along, questions arise. As some of you know, I have done a lot of traveling so far this summer, and I have one more trip coming up to a podcasting conference in August. Travel takes us out of our day-to-day, and particularly on the Windjammer cruise that I just finished, there was time to sit with myself, relax, and think. And the thoughts revolved about how I was going to transform the work I am doing into something that provides me with an income. So the questions I was asking this time now are, do I want to focus on building my coaching practice? Do I want to focus on becoming a paid speaker? Do I want to create an online course? Should I turn some of my content into a book? Each one of these things will take time and effort, and I am questioning where to put that time and effort. I also know that at this stage in my life, it's important for me to have time for my friends and family and for the causes that are important to me. So I am definitely in the messy middle of a transition right now. And I'm telling you, it's a little uncomfortable, but it won't last forever. I have worked with many people who come to me because of some change they are facing, that feeling of being uncomfortable in that messy middle or the neutral zone. They come because they are feeling stuck, anxious, and unable to see possibilities. Many of them deny their intuition of what they might really want, caving to the messages of fear and conformity, the shoulds. We should be doing this. It may seem that just moving on, giving in, following those shoulds, quieting those fears could overcome the feeling of being out of control. But as I coach my clients and myself, I try to provide us with space to feel those scary feelings and to use some of the tools to clear the fear and approach solutions and possibilities from a calmer mindset. One of the most powerful exercises that we do in the coaching program is called a life review. And Bruce Feiler's book, Life is in the Transitions, uses this technique. In this exercise, we separate our lives into chapters, and you write down the high points at different stages. And what did those high points mean to you? How did they influence your beliefs and your attitudes? And then you go back and you think about the low points in your life in the different stages, and how did they influence your beliefs and your attitudes? And then you look through the whole thing and you say, what were the themes in this story? What have I learned over my lifetime? And then you look back and see, what did you leave behind that you used to really love doing? And how might you bring some of those things into the present day? The life review gives people time in the neutral zone or the messy middle to reflect, to consider possibilities. It's a time to try out new ideas, and that these ideas may lead to a new sense of vitality, a new beginning, where you start to feel it's possible once again to take the time to be open and explore. I wanted to share with you some of the mistakes I have made and that I've seen clients make as they find themselves in this time of transition or change. And I'm going to give you a few suggestions also about how to avoid some of these mistakes. First of all, there's impatience. You know, it is very unsettling not to know what is next or where our next opportunity will come from. We feel a sense of urgency to fix the problem, and we want the fix now. Staying busy feels good for the moment, but it can also create a situation where our fear and desperation may lead to another bad opportunity. Future retirees simply rush out and buy toys, motorhomes, or a second home, new golf clubs, vacations, and they likely find themselves with a lot of unused new toys and a feeling of boredom and little passion for life. I encourage my clients to give themselves some time to explore what they would like to do, what they would like their new opportunity to be at this life stage. This is important when you are looking for another job or trying to figure out what retirement will look like. Don't be in a hurry. Give yourself permission to slow down and really consider your options. This is your future, and you can create it the way you want it to be. After consideration, if golf clubs and vacation homes are what you want, you will be more likely to be happy with that choice than if you immediately made those purchases to satisfy what you thought might be a want. As I am in the midst of figuring out what I want to do next, I am very aware of getting caught in staying busy to avoid facing some of the more challenging questions. Being impatient or acting too soon does not fix the discomfort, it just delays it. It will come back. So I have to remind myself, step away from the computer, Wendy, face some of these questions, figure some of this out, try new possibilities. Okay, number 2, giving into fear. Change can generate a lot of discomfort, as we've talked about. We call it the fear of the unknown. Giving into the fear stops us from seeing the possibilities, the opportunities, and it stops us from trying new things. I want to tell you a story that really helped me understand how to step in spite of the fear. This story takes place in the Cayman Islands. I was down there for a scuba diving trip, and some of the scuba diving we had already done had been just amazing. Beautiful, beautiful fish, beautiful reefs, not too deep. On this particular trip, we'd gone out on the dive boat, and there was no land that you could see. In my point of view, we were in the middle of the ocean. And we all got off the boat, followed the dive master, and started to descend. And then I saw it looked like she was going into a cave, and I was filled with fear. The last place I wanted to be in the middle of the ocean was in a cave, because if I suddenly needed to surface, I couldn't. So I was very scared. And I also realized I was in the middle of the ocean. I had to follow, because if I surfaced and the boat wasn't there, I was out there by myself. So I held back until everybody in the dive excursion had entered into this cave. And then, with much trepidation, I proceeded to follow. It wasn't long before I got into what looked like the cave that I realized it was a tunnel. There was light at the other end, and everybody that had gone into this seemingly cave, which was a tunnel, had already come out the other end. And I learned that I could face my fear and that there would be light at the end of the tunnel when you look for it. Big lesson. So that leads me into tunnel vision. Tunnel vision is number 3, and that occurs when you try to focus on the one thing. All I thought I saw was a cave. It was not a cave. It was a tunnel. And when you get fixated on just one solution or one idea, you miss all the other possibilities that may be outside of your field of vision. For instance, I had a client who was the sales and marketing director for a small aviation company. However, the owner was not sharing information with him, and it seemed like the investors were starting to become uncomfortable with their investment in the firm. When we started talking about this, the only option he saw was to push harder for more communication, more access to clients, more heads down, more hard work. As he was able to see that there might be other options outside of the company he was working for as well as inside, he was able to think about more choices. We always have choices, even if the choice is not to make a choice. I encourage my clients to broaden their lens, to imagine that there are other possibilities, and to name what some of them might be. When that happens, it is like they suddenly see sunlight, like they're coming out of the dark in the tunnel, and amazing new opportunities and possibilities begin showing up in their lives. As I mentioned before, I have 4 opportunities that seem worth exploring for what I'm going to do next. Maybe there are more, or maybe a combination of 2 or 3 of these will become the way to go. The ultimate question will be, which of these opportunities will give my life meaning and bring me some of the income I desire? Number 4 is the analysis paralysis. Once people begin seeing possibilities, they may actually become the victim of analysis paralysis. This is actually another way of giving into fear. We get so involved with the internet now and Google, and we start researching. We just need to know one more thing, one more detail before we can make that decision. And it's the fear of making the wrong decision. And it can stop us from moving forward because we just don't know which option to try. We just feel like we don't have enough information. If you're the type of person who likes to talk things over, you will also be getting lots of different opinions and advice from people that you talk to. And if this happens, I would encourage you to make a list of the top 3, maybe 5 things, possibilities in the order that excite you. Then, starting with the first one, ask yourself, what do I have to do to make this possibility a reality? And then start doing it. Take some action. It does not mean that you are stuck with that option, but you will feel more empowered once you start to move. Look at it as a science experiment. Test the possible solution. If it's not the right solution for you, move on to the next possibility in your list. And finally, many of us find that we hold ourselves back with our idea that, I'm very independent. I don't need to ask for help. I have to go this alone. And so people that have just lost jobs, suddenly they're on the job board. Search. They're not going out of their house to network. They don't bother anyone because they don't want to be a burden. We are humans and we need people. We're designed that way. Asking for support or help takes courage. Receiving or help or support in difficult times can nourish you. I decided to be open about the current transition I'm going through because I feel your support. Being part of this Hey Boomer community is powerful, and I appreciate the feedback I get from you. I am here for you, and I know you are there for me. Transitions can be a time of tremendous personal growth and a time of learning. I want to share with you a quote from Eric Roth, who wrote the screenplay for The Curious Case of Benjamin Buttons. Remember that show? It goes like this. For what it's worth, it's never too late to be whoever you want to be. There's no time limit. Stop whenever you want. You can change or stay the same. There are no rules to this thing. You can make the best or worst of it. I hope you make the best of it. And I hope you see things that startle you. I hope you feel things that you never felt before. I hope you meet people with a different point of view. I hope you live a life you're proud of. If you find that you're not, I hope you have the courage to start over again. So thanks for tuning in today and letting me share with you. I hope this was useful and meaningful. Be sure to download the Vitality Assessment from the heyboomer.biz webpage. And when you are considering travel, check out roadscholar.org/heyboomer. Our guest for next week is going to be Dr. David Bernstein. He is a retired physician and gerontologist. He's going to talk to us about living a long, healthy, and fulfilling life, something I think we all aspire to. And I like to leave you with the belief that we can all live with curiosity, live with relevance, and live with courage. And remember that we are never too old to set another goal or dream a new dream. My name is Wendy Green, and this has been Hey Boomer. Hey Boomers, 40% of Americans have a hard time swallowing pills. So when it's time to take your vitamins, large capsules and pills are out of the question. I certainly don't like those. So we know gummy vitamins exist, but they're full of sugar. They get stuck in your teeth, and they only contain a fraction of the nutrients that you need. Luckily, Easy Melts has discovered the ultimate vitamin sweet spot. Vitamins that melt in your mouth, taste like a treat, and are packed with nutrients ready for absorption, all without an ounce of sugar. For a limited time, Easy Melts is giving Hey Boomer listeners a free 3-month supply of vitamin D3 with your first purchase. To claim your free D3, visit try.easymelts.com/heyboomer. Say goodbye to the old way of taking your vitamins and hello to the easy way.